Morning. Can you guys hear me? Fran?
Yeah, Rob, we hear you.
Oh, fantastic.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good
Good
morning.
morning.
I'm going to mute myself until 9:30. I just have a different laptop. I wanted to make sure I
Morning.
didn't have technical difficulties. So hang on for a minute.
Good morning.
Morning.
Let's give everybody a little extra credit. How's that sound, like Fran Blakely?
Extra credit for what?
For the extra 3 minutes we're going to talk here. How's that sound?
Okay.
I'm going to save the meat for maybe 5 minutes after 9:35, but I want to maybe just talk a little bit beforehand, casually. I think, Fran, unfortunately, you're an unwilling co-host today. Because you have some advanced knowledge here, and you're an excellent resource for our organization.
Thank you.
In terms of, the settlement, I've seen some things going on now that they're talking about it being a $5 billion settlement because of the trebling of damages. Was that something that happened after the decision that you're aware of, or was that just an implied? I'm curious about that piece.
What, to the best of my knowledge, which was awarded was the 1.78 in damages, and the 4 billion in treble damages were all awarded at the same time. Not being, privy to be in that courtroom, that's what I felt, that the decision had come down at that point in time.
And because normally they try to make it more dramatic, and I was surprised that the headline number was the 1.78 billion. But that's fine. And the part that I find to be, personally a little bit, disturbing, disingenuous is, there have been some medias that have used the term price fixing, conspiracy, and cartel. And if you understand our industry and we're able to communicate that to the people that we serve, which is the real crux of what we have, is we all know that this is not a cartel. We all know that we don't conspire with our competitors. And I think if you look at the true north of what our industry is the cooperation that NAR promotes is really in the best interest of the consumer, not in the best interest of the industry professionals. Because how many of us in the past 2 or 3 years could have just taken a listing and not syndicated and shared it with our cooperative agents and made more money, right? We probably all could have double-ended a lot more of these transactions, but for, the clear cooperation. And, even clear cooperation is embedded in some of the New Jersey, like the real estate rules and regulations, right? I think, Fran, New Jersey requires you to share your listings as a licensee or to get a specific waiver of cooperation, correct?
Correct. And you have to actually enter your listings within 24 hours of the listing date to try to ensure that. They are big proponents of giving everyone an opportunity, and every consumer, what it boils down to, the opportunity to participate or purchase a home. I think that's really important because, they say, well, this is all about like the agents, and the agents are getting this commission, but it's bringing the consumer the opportunity to have a chance at purchasing a particular home. Whereas if we didn't have the clear cooperation, it does eliminate people from being able to, to possibly have an opportunity on that particular home if they're interested in it.
So,
And those clear cooperation rules mean, you can't advertise that property, until you do list that property. You can't advertise that property. You can't really, if you're not cooperating, you cannot put up a sign even on the property. So it makes it difficult for us to, for lack of better words, to hog the commission on our own when, you can't advertise something. It's really sometimes difficult to sell. And it goes, and once you have a waiver of broker cooperation, there are a lot of rules that have to be followed about what you're doing with it has to be registered, you know, in various multiple listing systems.
So, is there anybody has any questions? Because I'm gonna go into the core content at 9:35 just to give a few people the opportunity to get in, because this is a majorly important subject. But anybody have any, questions that maybe I can weave into the conversation?
Hey, Rob, it's Michael Luzzy. How are you?
I'm great. How you doing, Michael?
Good. I'm amazed. I have to tell you, I'm amazed how I've been reading a lot about it, like how this ever even came up. Like, it's almost like a scam to me. I mean, we've been doing business like this for so many years. You know, you cooperate with another agent. The seller pays commission. I mean, how did they change this all around? Like, what happened here? Like I said, I'm kind of dumbfounded to say, like, how did this all come about? And we're talking about billions of dollars in damages. Like, oh my God.
Okay, so a couple of things is I'm gonna try to. So Elizabeth, are you somewhere where you can maybe moderate the chat for me?
Yes, I can.
All right. So for those of you who don't know, Elizabeth, has it been 3 weeks now that you've been on board, or longer, a month?
It's been a month. I
Okay,
know
yeah.
time goes by quickly, but it's been a month already.
Yes. Well, welcome aboard. Elizabeth is a key part of our leadership team in Florida and focusing primarily on our Broward County offices. We're thrilled to have you, by the way.
Thank you.
If you can moderate the chat, because I think we might have a pretty active chat. This way we can address all that. Michael, your question was, and I guess this will be the formal kind of start of this, so hopefully everybody is on, is, how did this happen and why now? Is that kind of like what you're looking at?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
And I think that a conflux of changes that have happened that aren't fundamental, but apparently there have been attempts at these type of litigations for years, right, Fran?
Yeah, it actually, NAR's response to this initial investigation a few years ago, where there was a case that was like dismissed, was that we display the amount of commission that the buyer's broker is getting even on the customer report. And after coming to a whole list of terms for agreement, which I don't really have a copy of that agreement, you know, that was supposed to suffice this, but then all of a sudden, this just continued and went even stronger as a class action suit with this attorney taking charge and doing this. So we have been, working this way for years, and we are really being attacked, with it.
So I want to just share that ironically, on the day that this announcement came out, okay, I received a check in the mail, and I was getting all these notices that if I didn't opt out of this class action, that I would be included. And my wife and I got a check sent to our house on Halloween from TD Bank saying that there was a class action lawsuit, and here's your award. It was $2. And we have 37 bank accounts with TD Bank. So who do you think gets all the money? The attorneys do.
The
Yeah.
lawyers.
The attorneys probably charge a commission of 40%, 30%, something to that magnitude, right? And then attorneys also do, because they make the laws, they actually get their fees back. So if they pay for an expert witness to collect the money, if they pay a filing fee, they get all their money reimbursed. So in my opinion, there should be a class action lawsuit against the attorney business because of the way that they practice. And I think the only way that gets done is through legislative reform.
Rob, I have a question also. It's my understanding, as I've been stating for years, when I would go to a for sale by owner, one of the things that I've told them is that when working with a realtor, the appraisal status, the appraiser works in our commission into the fact of the home, because they know that commission has to be paid. And that's one of the reasons a for sale by owner is normally sold for less as well, because there isn't any cooperation and they're doing it themselves without commission. Did that not come up in the case? I didn't read or see anything, but I've been curious about that as far as the value of a home based on having real estate cooperation.
So your question was, does it add to the value?
Yes, I was actually under the impression for all these years that appraisers do take under consideration in the value when you compare a for sale by owner value to one sold with a realtor and the differences in
So
value.
I don't know that there's like a line item saying that this was a FSBO. I don't know if anybody, I think we probably have some people on the call that have appraisal experience. Maybe you can chime in.
There's no line
never
item.
heard that.
No line item to the difference, no.
Right,
No.
but I mean, you know, it wouldn't be considered a distress sale, but I think an appraiser might say that that property sold for less because it wasn't exposed to the marketplace. That would be something I can see as a footnote, but I don't think that there's a line in there. And, you know, Scott, what I think, and this is actually to everybody, what I think happened in this case was the attorney who represented the plaintiffs, Ketchmark, I believe his name was, he had a prior work relationship with the judge that was handling the case. And senior leadership at RE/MAX shared with us on the leadership team at RE/MAX that there were rulings that were being made that make no sense, which, you know, they could have went through the appeal process. And I think NAR feels very comfortable that they're going to be successful in the appeal process. However, if the judge keeps ruling against you, you know, RE/MAX said we have to stop the expenses. I mean, this can go on for years and years and years, and we just wanted to get out. So by RE/MAX making a practical decision to end the case, what they've done is they've insulated the brokers, the regional owners, and most importantly, the agents that are part of the RE/MAX network. And the way that the language read, and I don't think it's been fully ratified by the judge, that said previous, current, and future RE/MAX agents will be indemnified against this litigation. So that to me is huge. And I actually saw some, I think it was Housing Wire lines, which it was saying that for the brands of Anywhere and RE/MAX, a lot of these agents and brokerages should be aligning and becoming part of the franchise to avoid future liability. So those are things that might be good for our brand. You know, you look at what's good and what's bad out of a situation. I think that's, you know, one thing that's done. And in no way, and in the press release for both NAR and for RE/MAX, you know, RE/MAX did not admit any liability. RE/MAX did not commit to changing its business practices. That's very clear. Okay. RE/MAX said that, hey, we made this settlement. I believe the only concession that RE/MAX really had make in this was that they're going to now disclose on the RE/MAX own portals the cooperative commission that's being offered on the listings that we display. So if on remax.com or if on our personal web pages with IDX, the IDX now needs to be able to share with the consumer what the compensation being offered to the buyer's agent is.
How do we know that the plaintiff had a working relationship with the judge? I'm interested in that.
I hadn't read it. I believe it was in Inman or the Real Deal or the Housing Wire, but I think it's pretty common knowledge that they worked for the same firm years ago. The firm that the plaintiff was at was no longer the same firm that the judge worked at. But I believe that that was part of the, you know, it's kind of like this wink, wink type of thing. But
Okay, that's great content for my video.
yeah, so I would do some research and just make sure that you can connect
Will.
those dots and you know, try not to, you know, the public is getting a message and you know, sometimes the public thinks that, you know, we make a lot of money, you know, oh, you make 6%. They don't
The
realize.
public is loving this because the public always feels, most of the public feels realtors are scumbags and we overcharge And this is great news. Wow, they're not gonna be able to take so much commission from us. They have no idea what our value is, most of these people. And by us gracefully bowing out just because we don't want to take on the expense of an attorney, many can see that as, silence means guilty.
So Netta, you brought up a lot of good points there that I want to bring up. Number one is the public that we work with. We have like a 90% 4 or 5 rating on the services that we provide.
Here,
So,
here.
So if you look at the consumers that actually transact with us, those are people that know that we care. They know that we have their best interest. There's amazingly low amounts in terms of the volume of transactions versus allegations of breach of fiduciary duty or even competence. So I think the public doesn't share that sentiment. I think the media likes to spend realtors 6%. They drive fancy cars, but that couldn't be further from the truth.
I absolutely agree with you. It couldn't be further from the truth.
So I'm going to mute everybody, and then when you talk, just unmute yourself because we have some background noise. Okay.
Rob, I have a question about the RE/MAX settlement. It's Stacy Letterman. I read.
Stacey, can you unmute yourself? I just had to mute everybody so we could hear. Go ahead.
Sorry. Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. So I have a question about the RE/MAX settlement because I read something that along with the settlement and no offer of, or no, admitting no guilt, it said that RE/MAX agreed to pull back on their relationship with NAR.
Okay, that's another.
Like NAR is the big, everybody's saying NAR is forcing all the agents to co-broke. And does this mean going back to sub-agency, which was, I don't know. But yeah, my thing about the pulling back from NAR is that, has RE/MAX said anything to you about that?
Okay, so Stacy, would you agree that sometimes a little bit of information is dangerous and misleading?
Oh, yes.
So what RE/MAX had agreed to do in the settlement, which I actually probably should have pointed out, is they agreed to not require franchisees to join NAR. Okay, so in the Netta, you're on mute. In the franchise agreement previously, it said that as part of the terms and conditions of being a franchisee, you are required to be a member of NAR, because RE/MAX was calling himself a realtor company, right? And to be a realtor company, you need to be a member of the National Association of Realtors. So the strict requirement for offices and agents to be a member of NAR was agreed to be removed from the franchise agreement, and they did agree to display on the consumer forward sites the co-op commission that's being offered out. Okay.
Okay,
so
thank you.
RE/MAX does not in any way, shape, or form think that NAR is guilty. RE/MAX is not disassociating itself with NAR. NAR is we should have one of these sessions, and Fran, if you want to unmute yourself, I think what we should do is have one of these sessions about what does NAR do for us, because we have so many things going on. We get so many emails. We're so distracted that sometimes our association of NAR is just that we have to pay the dues at the end of the year. And that's annoying because right around Christmas time, we got to fork out money for NAR. Right. But NAR does a tremendous job of advocacy for our industry. And
I would like to know what NAR does for me. I would really like to know that. And I would like to share that knowledge with the rest of the realtors.
So Ned, I think what we should do is maybe we'll do a follow-up session, and maybe Fran, you and some of the leadership team from the local board, maybe we could have Mary Kano and George come on and talk about the benefits of NAR, because I don't feel like I'm being forced to be a member of NAR. I feel like it's a benefit that gives to the housing community, the homeowners, the people who haven't bought yet. It advocates for our cause in legislative matters, because if we don't have any voice, okay, we're going to lose a lot of things that we have. Fred, I believe that the $500,000 exemption on the profit on the sale of your primary residence is a direct impact of NAR, because
it's an impact of your legislative things being worked on
So Fran, when you say are you talking about like an ethics hearing or a commission dispute?
Yes.
So just to clarify, RPAC stands for Realtor Political Action Committee. So
Right.
this is, RPAC is about lawsuits, correct?
No,
RPAC is about,
No, RPAC is about lobbying for topics that are good for the industry. Okay.
okay.
And
Hey, Rob, do you want a recent example? During COVID, the reason we were able to work was because of the work of RPAC with the legislature. Okay,
that's
because
an excellent.
So the hold
example for
harmless.
Jersey.
Okay.
the hold harmless was done by the local boards, Netta. But Jay's point is RPAC and the New Jersey political money was used to deem us as essential workers so that we were actually allowed to work during the COVID shutdown.
That's great to know. That's great to know.
Okay, that's an excellent point. And I wanted to say that, ironically, I think, Fran, are commission disputes or arbitrations up?
Actually, they were up a little bit, but I haven't seen too much on my local board level with them being, even more up, because basically the listing inventories are down about 27% in the Bergen County area. So when you have less listings, you have less fines, you have less disputes. I'm not saying that they don't exist, but I feel that they're down a little bit.
I was told in our local, in the North Central and the CJ MLS that they were up because and this was what the executives at those boards said, is that agents are struggling, and it was easy for them to block out another offer and try to make both ends of it. And they do police that. And we actually, I'm proud to say this, that with our leadership team, we had 2 of them, and we won both of those cases where the agent basically tried to steal a side of the transaction that didn't belong to them.
Rob, it's Deb. It was up 224% in the NCJAR.
Okay, so it's more than double. Thank you for sharing that. So we prepare and we presented our case, and if that conversation, if there was not an alternative to arbitrate that would have gone to litigation, and the cost would have been prohibitive to enforce our rights under those conditions. So that's another benefit of what NAR does for us and being part of the association. I am impassioned by getting the message across to all of us, so that when somebody says, you guys were found guilty of being a cartel or price fixing, that I am unashamed at addressing it and talking about what benefit we have.
Yep.
Okay? And I'm going to read to you excerpts from the NAR president, and I'm going to read to you an email that we all probably got, maybe didn't read, from Nick Bailey. It's only going to take a couple of moments to do that, but I think it's important for you to kind of have it read into our record here so that we know what is going on, because we paid $55 million. I don't want that to cast an aura about we admitted any guilt or we think we did anything wrong, because
Right.
we didn't. I don't favor any type of a change in the policy that we have about having buyers be represented in a transaction. Okay, I am unwavering in my belief that that system provides a benefit to buyers. Okay, and you know, I just find that there's a tremendous hypocrisy in the way that that case was presented. Okay, you know, you know who approves how much money the lawyers are able to get in a class action suit? A judge, and a judge is a lawyer. It's like a conflict of interest right there. They get all their fees reimbursed. You know, I see you, Lauren. When you do a lot of marketing and you do a closing, do you give the seller a invoice for your fees to get reimbursed?
I wish.
Right. So we do good for the public, and we should not be ashamed if somebody says, hey, you know, all you realtors, you guys got exposed. No, we didn't. You know, what we do is we believe we do it good for the industry. We do good for our clients. We believe that having both parties represented is a benefit. Every seller that we work with is being disclosed that we're sharing part of that commission. We're not being greedy. We're sharing that so that you get a higher price. Okay. So
Rob?
that's, yes.
I was just gonna say, I think RE/MAX did a really good thing by settling, because I think that they had the foresight to see that this could mushroom into something much larger. So I think I feel great knowing that RE/MAX took those steps to try to indemnify us and all the other future agents. That said, if this continues to spiral out and they continue to go after all the other brokerages, which it seems is their intent from what I keep reading, then if I'm a consumer, I only care about how much commission I'm paying, right? So if I only have to pay my listing agent, then I'll pay 3% instead of paying 6%. And then the buyer's agents, right? They have to show property because they're obligated to show any property regardless of the commission. So if I'm a buyer's agent, I have to either have my client, right, sign a buyer's representation to protect my commission, or I have to negotiate with that listing agent who might be getting 3%.
So Lauren, that's an excellent point. I think what might also be coming out of this, and Fran, maybe you or anyone else that has some insight into this, would be that the use of buyer agency agreements are probably going to become the norm, in my opinion, because it's going to outline this way everybody understands the process, and there's basically a written document to evidence that nobody can claim ignorance, right?
The state of New Jersey is, just as we have to have a signed listing agreement when we list a home, is legislating to have that a signed buyer agreement is going to be mandatory. What is going to be in that agreement, or, you know, with the state forms, we're not sure yet. We haven't had a recent meeting. You know, these things take a little bit of time. But, you know, basically what happened is at a risk management meeting here in New Jersey, it was announced that there are probably at least 13 to 16 states already practicing exclusive buyer agency. So, you know, it is coming and we're going to have to deal with it. I don't think that we should be afraid of it, because a lot of people are like, oh, well, how are we going to get our, you know, commission paid? And, you know, there's probably going to be a lot of information about either the agreement stating that or section, you know, something that we would be able to say, we're going to try and secure the commission from the seller. And if we can't do that, then you're liable. I did reach out to a few lenders to see what they were doing in preparation for it. And at that time, which was over a month ago, I didn't hear that they were doing anything specific, because I said, well, how will this affect the buyers and their ability to qualify and everything else? And at that point, I think everybody was still just sitting tight with this situation.
So Fran, I will bet every day that if we have the best full-time, most professional lineup and agents in the industry, that we're gonna end up on top. Okay, and the industry you know, the average real estate professional is earning $45,000 a year. Okay, that's not even a livable wage. Okay, if you look at the average. So we as an industry are not we're not overpaid. We're not taking advantage of the public. And I for sure believe that if we're not sharing our listings, that the home sellers are going to be penalized because they're going to get lower prices, and home buyers who don't have the either the counseling or they don't have the financing to hire a buyer's agent will then be at jeopardy of making more bad transactions. It's going to be a bad spiral. So, Bill, did you have a question, or is your hand up there by mistake?
No, I definitely want to get into this conversation.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was at a meeting yesterday, and I was at the past president's meeting Tuesday, and heard about this for basically the first time. But some interesting things came out of those conversations. Well, the most important to me was that Ohio, which is one of my fellow agents, also has a company. Their entire state is buyer representation, and he, as a matter of practice, charges way more to his buyers as a guaranteed commission against what we normally get from our cooperating of agents down here in South Florida, which is the 2.5% to 3%. He charges more, and he gets it. And the reason he gets it is because he sells himself as to what his services are, and of course he gives a credit for anything that he does receive from the cooperating agent. So this buyer representation is definitely going to be different for Florida, and I guess for New Jersey. But it is not necessarily a bad thing for professionals who know how to sell themselves and do their job.
Rob, don't you think eventually what's going to happen is when you sign a listing agreement, it's going to actually be the seller who decides what the buyer's agent gets paid, and it might be rolled into the contract? So when you present an offer, you'll say, well, I'm prepared to take 2%, and that is worked into the figure that the seller looks at. So they might say, okay, Trudy is going to offer $550 for this house, and instead of wanting 3 or 2.5%, she's going to do it for 1.5%. So that puts more money into my pocket.
It's similar to a rental.
Well, I am hopeful. I am hopeful that we don't get to that point, because then there's going to be, you know, the seller negotiating the price and the commission that they pay us, which I think is going to be complicated. And Trudy, it also puts us at a tremendous conflict of, you know, how do we exercise our fiduciary duty to our clients and also earn a living wage?
Yeah, well, the thing is, we won't know until the offer goes in and is accepted. And I can't remember.
I'm going to say in front of everybody, that's a slippery slope. And I hope we don't get there, because then we're negotiating two at the same time. To me, it doesn't seem like that's a sustainable model.
There was chaos in California for about a month or two, and then it's business as usual, I heard.
Yeah, I think the only reason why I'm thinking about that is that I can't remember the name of the site. A donor may be able to help, but she sent out something where you could sign up to get these leads, and how you got them was you would say what commission you prepared to give back. And I signed up for it first, and then what I did was I sent them an email just saying, oh, I'm going to withdraw from this because I value my professional integrity a bit more than saying that I'm going to do it. I'm going to give the buyer, like 2% back or whatever it may be.
Right, but
that process is just a race to the bottom.
Right, but Trudy, that's something that's been available to us for a while, excluding this, because Florida, you've been able to give commission back to the buyer. New Jersey, I want to say 6 or 7 years ago, might even be longer ago. If you have a agreement with them in advance of your relationship, you can agree to rebate the commission without having them be licensed. So I don't think this decision is going to change that buyer piece to it. And I think it's a really slippery slope if we get into the point where, okay, here's a zero commission being offered out, right? And we're gonna negotiate with the seller about the buyer's commission. I think maybe a way that I see it, trying to look into the future is, you know, we have a 2.5%, 3% buyer agency agreement with our client. When we make the offer, you know, we say, look, you know, the seller would like to make an offer of 510,000 with 2.5% being paid as a seller concession to pay the buyer's commission. I can envision that, you know, without any type of tectonic change to the way the industry runs itself.
But there's a limit to a seller's concession, and then doesn't that
Right.
hurt the seller during the home inspection?
It's
I'm
not a
sorry?
concession.
I'm sorry, Netta?
Isn't there a limit to a seller's concession?
So,
Because it will affect
yes.
them during the home inspection.
well, not necessarily the home inspection, but so like generally, most, and Bruce, I see Frank around, isn't it normally like 6% unless you're putting a lower down payment on a conventional, it might be limited to 3%?
Yeah,
6%.
FHA is, good, Frank. FHA is 6% across the board. Conventional, if you're doing a 90 loan to value or higher, you're limited to 3. So you know, 6%, it would be if you're putting at least 10% down. But we kind of envision, we're also from the lending side, the MBA, to Mike's initial point, we're trying to figure out who the hell's behind this. I think it's more of a disclosure thing. Like, I don't think some attorney just tripped on billions of dollars worth of the lawsuit. Something's behind this. When we went through Dodd-Frank, it was political, but the sales concession will protect a lot of transactions. But to Netta's point, where you'll have a challenge depends on the price point of the house. If you're doing VA, because VA is only 4%, okay, it's going to depend on the price of the house in general, you know, where it is. But for most part, everybody on this call and the places that we all do business, there's a lot of concession that can be given, so we all should be okay. And I also think from the lending side, just hearing you guys, it's almost the same as when you put together a FSBO transaction where you're approaching the seller and saying, hey, pay me my 3%. I don't think you're going to find many listing agents willing to work out there as a discount broker and also do the buy side. So I think worst case, to Rob's point, is we just put it into a concession. And yeah, it'll limit some people where if they're completely tight, it may limit them. But for the most part, I think it's going to be something we could absorb.
So Bruce, in the current environment, if there was a contract that said the seller is going to pay the commission to the buyer's agent, I don't even think that would be considered.
No, and that's a
buyer.
good point when you talked about appraisal. So one of the people said, hey, how does that work into the appraisal? The appraisal does mention concessions when you're getting the seller to pay closing costs, or someone brought up a home inspection. If we're saying it's closing costs instead of the house is broke, you know, the bottom line is that those concessions are tracked. Obviously, the idea behind the fact that it's inflated, that's the same as saying when we get a seller concession that we're inflating a price. And to me, as long as the home appraises, it you know, it doesn't matter, and you could get those concessions. But there's no breakdown of.
But Bruce, let me just take a step back here, because right now we have buyer's agency, right? And a buyer's agent represents the interest of the buyer. It's very clear. The tradition is the entire commission is paid by the seller. So perhaps here's another way of looking at it, right? You make the offer, I don't know, Netta, you make the offer to an agent and you say, hey, I have a buyer's agency agreement. I'm getting paid 3%. The seller is requesting that you include that in your side of the closing costs. It's even possible that a lender might say that that's not a concession because that's the way it used to be done in the past. So
if it goes to the buyer, it's a concession. If it comes from the seller, it won't be, Rob. In other words, if it's the seller's paying the realtor, it won't be. But if the buyer has an agreement that says he owes it and the seller's
Like
paying it for the buyer, it's going to be.
Right,
Yeah,
right. But I mean,
distinction.
but Bruce, if the contract presentation just switches the liability and the seller says, hey, I agree, and probably now there will be a waiver saying that they won't participate in any future litigation to sue saying I paid the other side,
then you're fine.
Yeah, a negotiated term. But the fact that we're having these conversations is going to put us ahead of the curve. And the most important thing for me is to make sure everybody leaves here knowing that, you know, as the owner of the Remax franchises, our leadership going up the line and down the line, as should not feel like we've done anything wrong, because we haven't. We've done what we believe protects the public and creates for a fluid marketplace. Because for those agents, and I know, Deb, you mentioned that one of the boards, the arbitration's up 224%, right? We have a conduit to get these things resolved in a matter of months instead of years. We don't have to pay retainers to attorneys. If people aren't a member of NAR, you know, and this is a question, Fran, if the industry now consists of people who are a member of NAR, not a member of NAR, and somebody's not a member of NAR does something that's kind of breaking the rules, in that case, I don't think we have any ability to enforce that if they're not a member, which is a problem, right?
It is a problem,
So
yes.
you have people in the system who aren't a member of NAR, and Lauren, somebody steals your client, you show a property, somebody steals your client, right? And you're like, they got my client's name from the offer. They said my offer is rejected. They call your client and say, if you give me 5,000 more, I can get the deal done for you, right? You've done all the work. They basically stole from you. Now you have no place to go other than the courts. And you go to an attorney and they say, okay, Lauren, it's a $5,000 retainer. And deposit, you know, just for them to be present for a deposition of 2 or 3 parties, it's going to be $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 each time. Ask me how I know. I've seen it.
Look, even
Right.
if you don't have never in your career used NAR as your advantage, you know, anything like that, never been in court before. What is it, $400 a year?
It's like, I mean, well, that's another thing that it is.
Just pay it and have peace of mind. Who cares?
Right,
And if you're nickel and diming about $400 a year, you should not be an agent.
Right. So
Get
Netta,
out.
it's not, NAR is probably what, like 225 out of that 400?
Yes, yes.
This shouldn't even be a discussion. Just
Right.
next subject.
No,
So
so
one of
Netta, I appreciate your understanding, but I think this whole controversy is causing us to understand what the value proposition is. And it's giving you an opportunity to put up, I think it's $500 to have a group of your peers, okay, who don't have a vested interest, look at it and say who's right and who's wrong, and make an award that's not going to be appealed for years and cost tens of thousands of dollars. So there is a value in NAR, and NAR is not a cartel to protect the industry. NAR, most of the rules that NAR has are designed to protect the home buying public and to create an orderly marketplace. It's not to give us cartel-like or price-fixing power.
Can we talk about the disclosure of in the MLS of the commission? Because they did talk about maybe not disclosing the percentage that a buyer's agent would possibly get.
No, that has to be disclosed with clear cooperation. But I just want to go back to Rob's point a minute ago, which is very important. When you're doing your social media, your videos, you're posting out there, you want to be posting positive messages, not saying we're not guilty. You know, we want to post what we're doing in the communities, everything that we do to assist home buyers and home sellers to move through this process. We want it to be a very positive message. Advocacy, NAR is advocating for us. Besides legislatively, they have campaigns going on out there. So you need to put your personal local message out there.
So Fran, I'm going to put an exclamation point behind that. And I don't know if there's like a 1 paragraph like mission statement for NAR that you can pull up. And right now, I just want to read to you so that you can hear the motivation behind RE/MAX's settlement. And I know you can all read, it's not an insult, but I want to just have you listen to it. On September 18th, RE/MAX LLC announced it reached a nationwide settlement for the 2 class action lawsuits, Burnett and Morrill. The Morrill one is not scheduled till next year, but we've already negotiated out of that once this is approved. And any other similar legal actions last night. The plaintiffs filed the settlement agreement with the courts. So here's the summary of the settlement. It's important to note that the nationwide settlement, which requires court approval, would release RE/MAX LLC, its regions, its brokerages, and its affiliates, which is all of you, from any claims related to these lawsuits. It would also settle on a nationwide basis any similar claims that could be brought through the class action status. So basically for RE/MAX, this is over, okay? We continue to deny the allegations. A lot of times when they have settlement agreements, folks, they force you to admit to a practice that you shouldn't have done. And Nick Bailey and the leadership team at RE/MAX were like, we're not going to admit, even if they said, for 40 million, we'll let you off the hook, but you have to admit you did something wrong to the public. We said, no, we're not going to admit. We want to make sure that, we're settling the case, but we're not admitting any guilt. So as part of the, let's see, we continue to deny the allegations made in the complaint and in no way acknowledge any wrongdoing. We also continue and believe in buyer's agency, cooperative compensation, and the idea that consumers are best served when they're working with real estate professionals, which is basically what NAR does. It's the clear cooperation rule. At the same time, we believe that protecting the network from costly litigation and the risk of further damages made by this settlement and the right course of action. So that means if somewhere in the future something comes up on a class action basis, we can say double jeopardy, we're out. The settlement agreement is subject to court approval. We are also agreeing to 8 business-related conditions that RE/MAX LLC would need to implement within 6 months of the court approval. Okay, these are the things that they agreed to change. RE/MAX will continue to encourage you to be transparent when you're dealing with home sellers and buyers, especially in the areas of cooperative compensation. RE/MAX LLC won't require you to make offers of compensation or accept offers of compensation from competing brokers. So they're not requiring, but in no way are they saying we don't believe that you should do it. Okay, there's a huge difference. We also continue to encourage you to be very clear that commissions are negotiable, not set by law or RE/MAX LLC corporate policy, that can and should be communicated in listing agreements, buyer representation agreements, and pre-closing disclosure documents. If you use documents mandated by the local government or board or MLS, we recommend that you include an additional disclosure outlining these facts if they're absent. That's number one. Now, if we say that we're going to be clear, transparent, and honest, and that's part of our mission, that's no change whatsoever, okay? So we're admitting to continue to do what we do. RE/MAX LLC will continue to expect RE/MAX buyer side brokers and agents to be transparent and accurately disclosing their compensation structure. In other words, you should continue to be honest, right? You should continue, not change, to be honest and upfront about how much your services cost and how you expect to be paid. I don't think that our buyers believe that the money comes from the air, and I think they understand how the process works. That's my commentary. RE/MAX LLC via RE/MAX.com will display offers of cooperative commission made by listing brokers and agents where such data is available. RE/MAX LLC will encourage you to do the same on your listing platforms and feeds. So if you have your own private website, you should include what the cooperating commission is so a buyer can see that this one's only offering 1% and this one's offering 3%. They can say, maybe you're steering me because it's a 3%. We will continue. RE/MAX LLC will remind you of your professional obligation to show and market properties regardless of the offer of compensation might be. Number 6, RE/MAX LLC will continue to not express or imply minimum commission requirements in all of our franchise agreements, training material, other policies. In other words, RE/MAX brokerages and agents will continue to have the freedom to set and or negotiate commissions as they see fit. 7, RE/MAX LLC will develop educational materials reflecting and consistent with the business practices detailed above, and we'll make sure that our current content aligns with them as well. Number 8, and this is the final one, RE/MAX LLC will not require you to be members of the National Association of Realtors or follow NAR's Code of Conduct or Ethics or the MLS Handbook. All the RE/MAX brokerages will be free to determine whether NAR memberships work best for them and their agents, and will support the choice either way. RE/MAX LLC won't hold affiliates to any current requirements in these agreements because many of our contracts and some of the ICAs require you to be a member of NAR because we consider ourselves to be realtors. If you're not a member of NAR, you're not a realtor. As needed, we'll update our material in the spirit of transparency. They filed the statement. As industry leaders, RE/MAX understands RE/MAX affiliates understand the value of transparency, clarity, and fully informed buyers and sellers. after all these elements are the foundation of referrals and repeat business moving forward, RE/MAX LLC will amplify these principles and their importance as part of our role as a franchisor. Okay, the Burnett trial, then talks about the trial which just ended. So that is RE/MAX's position. I am proud to be a member of a company that's forward thinking, and also a member of a company that focuses on full-time serious agents to serve their clients. Because I think, some of the companies, they're not really in the real estate business. I'm not taking a dig at them. They're in the multi-level marketing business, and you can't be successful without investing in yourself in this business, and you can't serve your clients at that highest level. Anybody have any questions before I kind of go into the NAR comments, because I think those are equally as powerful.
When did you start doing the buyers?
What just one at a time. Did Angie, you had something?
Yeah, Rob, I was at an agent panel yesterday, and some of the top agents there were saying that we should be using more buyer's agency agreements. And I know that hasn't been a practice at our brokerage, but do you see an increase in agents actually using buyer's agency agreements?
Absolutely. I think it's going to become law, in my opinion. I think it's going to be.
It should be now. Yeah.
I think it's going to be built in, and I think that's a good thing, Angie. I think maybe buyers won't float around as much as they used to, right? You'll have to make a commitment to somebody, and that might be a really good thing.
Well, agents were not comfortable making a buyer sign, you have to work with me, you know what I mean? But now it's by law. You can, just like when you're talking to a seller about what their home is worth, well, it's the market saying that this is your home's value, not me. Blame it on the market. Now we can blame it on the law. Well, this is a new law. You have to sign if you want to work with me.
Right. So
good.
I'm going to do the NAR statement in a minute, but any other questions before I move on to that, and just one at a time?
Yeah, I have a question. I did not think of even what I'm about to ask you until hearing all these different ideas what everybody's talking about. What would happen? How would you handle? Okay, I basically represent buyers, and let's say it's a 4% commission. Our side's getting 2%, and my buyer says, "Hey, look, for my deal to look better, I want you guys to take 1 because that means the seller has to pay out less, and I'll look better than some other offers in there." I can see that happening. I didn't even think about it until this meeting. How would you handle a situation like that if the buyer says that to you?
So, Robert, hold on, Robert. I think that these are things that get determined at the onset of the relationship.
Yeah, that's where your buyer. That's where your buyer.
So if that happens, Robert, then maybe you'd say, look, maybe in that agreement you're asking for the seller to pay 1%, right? And the buyer will pay 1%. But I don't think that's a license for us not to get paid.
I think we should have an objection handling mastermind.
And actually, absolutely, Netta, I'm all for that. But I think that's where all these things are spelled out up front so that it's clear, it's transparent, and we're able to service. Like if Robert, if we can't make a living, right? If we can't provide for our families, then we can't deliver that service, and that's just the basics, right?
Right.
So nobody should have an expectation of, taking advantage of us, and we should have that clear conversation up front. Now, I want to go through any other quick questions before I read kind of like the NAR's position.
I have a quick question, Rob. Do you think that this is going to, how is it going to affect in Florida, we're transaction brokers. So that's an interesting concept.
So Colleen, I think that, with the political action committees that are in all the states, and with the leadership there, that something will be figured out so that we can serve the clients and earn a living. I'm gonna say that, like, did you ever see that sometimes things just find a way? And
absolutely,
if we're serving the public, and we provide a value, that there's going to be flexibility in determining how we deliver that value, and under no circumstances should we take anything where we're misleading the public, because that's not who we are, that's not who we've been. I know almost everybody on this call, and you would not do anything that lacks integrity. So I am so proud to be affiliated with both Remax and the leadership team and all of you.
Rob, it's Bill.
Yes. Good, Bill.
In answer to Colleen's Florida question, I'm in Florida too. We have three different representations: transition, buyers, sellers, and no representation. It's actually four. So they're all legal. They're all approved, and you can pick one and use it. The default is transition, but you can be a buyer's agent.
So Bill, what we can do is, I don't know if we actually have with our affiliate, we now have a full-time corporate real estate attorney who, Colleen, I think we're going to have a session for our team in Florida to address these items because, you know, Seth Kimball is a wealth of knowledge. Many of you in Florida know him, and I think this is his calling right now for us in Florida to help us identify how we better serve the clients with full transparency. We are running out of time. I'm going to read this, I'll stay on afterwards, but this is from our NAR president who, you know, she has tremendous courage and, you know, she's very transparent. And she says, I have an update. This is right after the case. I have an update after an 11-day trial. The 8-person jury in Kansas City, Missouri, found NAR and other corporate defendants liable. Okay. So they found liability based upon the rules that they were instructed on. This matter is not close to being final. I think this might go to the Supreme Court because this is such a big case and it involves so much significance. Every politician's buying a house, right? This impacts virtually everybody. This matter is not close to being done. We will file an appeal, and we will appeal the liability findings because we stand by the fact that NAR rules serve the best interests of the consumers, support market-driven pricing, and advance business competition. Okay, more competition is good for the public. It's not necessarily good for us. Okay, a fluid market's good for us, but this is the public getting more exposure to their homes. We remain optimistic that we will ultimately prevail. In the interim, we will ask the court to reduce the damages awarded by the jury. In court, NAR present evidence that. What's that? Okay. In court, NAR present evidence that consumers are better off and business competition is able to thrive because of our rules and how well local MLS broker marketplaces emphasized for many years two important things. One is the use of buyer representation agreements, which maximize transparency by putting all agreements in writing. These agreements formalize a professional working relationship with clients and detail the services consumers are entitled to and what the buyer agent expects from their client in return. Second, it's also imperative for members to continue to express that commissions are negotiable and set between brokers and their clients, explain how local MLS broker marketplaces promote equity, transparency, market-driven pricing for consumers, and persistently communicate the incredible value agents who we are provide. Okay. What does the future of buyer representation look like is a question. The verdict does not require a change in our rules, but if the class action attorney had their way, buyer representation would be very much at risk because many first-time buyers, among others, couldn't afford to pay for representation out of pocket. It's important to remember that members take every opportunity to express how they are experts who guide consumers through the financial, legal, and community complexities of buying and selling a home. Does NAR have funds to pay these proposed damages or post a bond? NAR is going to appeal and has the funds to post a bond. How does the verdict affect the other ongoing litigation, including the other seller lawsuits? It doesn't. Cases are tried separately. Is there any scenario where NAR would consider settling? The answer is NAR is always open to a resolution that maintains a way for buyers and sellers to continue to benefit from the cooperation of real estate professionals and eliminates our members' risk of liability for claims alleged. That being said, we remain confident we will prevail on appeal. Would NAR ever consider changing the cooperative compensation rule? The rule has been in place to protect the service, to protect and serve the best interests of consumers, support market-driven pricing. NAR consistently reviews and considers evolving its rules in a way that responds to changes in the industry and best serves its consumers. Do you expect the plaintiff to seek injunctions that would require NAR to stop making the rule mandatory, eliminate it altogether? Answer: we cannot predict what plaintiffs will do. And then what's the status of the Department of Justice? Has anything changed in this verdict? So this is another interesting one. They reached a resolution with NAR, with the DOJ, and the DOJ is now looking to renege on that agreement. Fran, if you have like
that was what I spoke about earlier. This started like well over a year ago, and that was what came out of that was the fact that we have to display the buyer broker's commission so that the consumer can see that. So that was part of their original agreement. I don't have a copy of the rest of the agreement, but that was where this whole thing ensued. The Department of Justice pulled back on it after they came to an agreement, which in and of itself was very unusual. But before we lose everybody, Rob, I just want to say the NAR the NAR meetings are November 11th to the 16th. If you go on nar.realtor, there is an opportunity to attend several of the sessions virtually. You know, if it's too much for one person to afford, maybe you want to get a group together that's going to say it's $150. I think it's $150 to attend virtually. To attend some of the sessions, it will give you a broader idea exactly of what I think NAR does for you. I don't know exactly what's being broadcast, but maybe you can get a group together in your office and watch these sessions. And I'm sure there will be talk about the litigation there. I can't promise you that. I'm going in person and really to understand how huge we are. Attending one of those national conferences, even the one that's in DC, is like, it's just an unbelievable thing to see the strength that we really have with all of our membership. It's a great experience, and I think you'll get some good information on the sessions that will be broadcast.
So, Fran, we'll convey that out again, and I thank you for A, sharing, and B, all the service that you do for our benefit as an organization. And I'm going to stay on and answer additional questions, but I just want to say that I hope we leave this call with a confidence and a willingness to address the public's ill-founded belief from the media that we did something wrong. Because if they understand and they know what we do, I will stand before any client and say, look, if we're doing what's best for you, and I'll do it proudly. So I hope that you can leave this and say, look, we're part of an association that's here to promote a fluid marketplace where home buyers and home sellers get treated fairly and ethically. There's a code of ethics that's overlaid over the state laws to ensure that the members of the Association of Realtors behave in the proper way. And I look forward to continue serving you. And that would be the message that I leave this with. And I just wanted to, have a proper forum to kind of break the fear and all this, conversation that's going on behind the scenes. And if you texted me or asked me for some advice or comments on this, I either referred you here or I haven't even gotten back to you because we've had so many questions about it. I hope this clarifies that for you. We're at 10:31. If you want to drop off, drop off. If you have any other questions, I'll stay here to answer them. And thank you for attending.
So in a nutshell, when I meet with my seller, I'm going to say my commission as a seller's agent, as your agent, is I can choose whatever number I want. Let's say 3%, right? Is 3%. You can choose what you would like to pay out to the buyer's agent. Do I need to say to my sellers, you don't have to if you don't want to?
So that's a great question. I would say that you're not required to make an offer to a cooperating agent. You could put it out at 0, but if you're offering no compensation, you think you're going to get full exposure.
Yes, well, this is
And
the
that's-
objective
and that's-
handling, because
and that's-
ultimately it will affect their price.
Right, I wouldn't say that. I mean, I would say that, here's my take on it, Netta, because when we say ultimately it will affect their price, you can't prove that, right? But if you say to somebody, look, Netta, if we promote your property and we offer no compensation to buyer's agents, they're gonna have to, it's gonna be limited to buyers that are willing to pay their agent independently, or they're gonna come in and say, we want you to pay this commission. So if you were to try to maximize the value of your house, what do you think the best thing to do is? And that would be the way I would discuss it. And, to be honest, there's a lot of people who haven't even heard about this. Okay. So if you say, look, what we offer out is completely up to you. Okay. Most of the competing properties are paying between 2 and 3%. What would you want to pay out? Keeping in mind that you're not required to offer out anything. And maybe there's even a disclosure saying that you're not required to offer out anything, but this is your free will and choice, right? To offer out what you want. And it's in the consumer's best interest. If they don't want to pay anything out, it's not like they're gonna, it's not like they're gonna save money, because somebody's gonna pay for the buyer representation.
Well, I have found that a pause has worked. I've had 2 listing appointments, and I said, this is, my commission is going to be 3% for the services that I'm going to offer you as a listing agent. It is your decision. What do you want to offer the buyer's agent?
I don't say that.
And I just pause, and they say, well, what do you mean? And I say, well, you can offer from 0 up to 10% or 20% if you would like. And inevitably they say, what do you suggest? What else are people offering? Or if I don't offer anything, nobody's going to come and show my house. So
I like that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
you have to make a
So-
scale. Either
So we maybe we can have a panel on how we can address these issues, because there's no one single right way to do it.
right.
I just want everybody, like, we did nothing wrong, and we can't let somebody else drive our narrative. Bill, you've been very patient with a question or a contribution.
Well, you could show them, what the norm is by just going on your laptop when you meet with them, or your iPad, and just show them this is basically what the buyer's agents get: 2.5%, 3%. My commission is 3.5% for my program. And if you're going to pay a buyer's broker, what would you like to pay?
So Ron, I would just say I would avoid the word norm, right? Because that implies some sort of a standard. Say, look, here's what.
Oh, okay.
Right, but I'm just saying, like, because of what's going on right now, I would just say I would avoid standard, the norm. Say, look, here's what people are offering.
Right.
As a seller, you need to decide how you want to incent people to show. And with the changes where there's no compensation required, if a buyer is having to pay the commission, do you think they're going to offer more or less on your house, Ron? Do you think that's going to provide more available buyers to bid the price up or less? And then you ask them to decide how they want to handle it. That's kind of how I would address it.
I
And
like
was
that
looking at-
sentence, more
Mhm.
available buyers to bid the price up. More
Right.
available buyers to bid the price up.
So, Netta, we can do a session on, how to address this. And, I'm always suspicious if somebody were to have a recording device and they were to record it and we were to say norm or standard, to me,
Right.
that applies price fixing, Ron. And I know you don't mean that, because I know that's not who you are, but this is the way they twist stuff. Okay?
And they have been recorded. I was with Co-op Banker, and I know another agent recorded the manager at a listing appointment and showed it to me, and I heard it, and I heard what went on. That's scary, guys. You are being recorded now, especially with Alexa and all these, Nest and all this technology. Be careful what words you choose. Yeah.
And Netta, sometimes Netta, people are even doing some final negotiating via text, right? And like, let's say you're building a relationship, get ready to put it on. They say, hey, Netta, I know we talked about 2 to 3%, and you text back and say the norm in Scotch Plains is 2.5%. Like, I would feel little bit uncomfortable about that because that can be twisted by a crafty attorney.
Sure.
Well,
Okay?
where's the proof? Where's the proof that the seller chooses that commission for the buyer's agent? It has to be something in writing, or does it
Right,
have
no,
to be?
but Ron, it's on our listing agreements where it says how much we're
Yeah,
paying.
I
right?
understood.
So, you know, maybe there's another disclosure that's gonna come out of this saying that you're not required to pay a commission.
That's,
And it creates another conversation, okay? But the premise that we've operated on for 100 years is not a flawed premise. It
No.
serves the public.
But Ron, to your point, where is the proof? Because the sellers always sign a listing agreement, and it is clear that 2.5% or 2% or 3% split is on there. But the problem with this lawsuit is that homeowners came forward and said, or buyers came forward and said, hey man, this conversation was never had with me. I was never given the choice.
the opportunity.
Well,
Right,
they were never given the opportunity.
Hold on, one at a time, please. So,
Test.
the verdict that was had, right? I mean, there are things that are admissible, there are things that are not admissible in a court, and I think the judge has a lot of leeway in what's admissible and instructing the jury on how to come up with a decision. And I think the presentation and the way that it was limited to the jury, who came back in a shockingly short period of time. I think in 2 hours and 28 minutes, they had the verdict, and in less than an hour and a half, they asked how to compensate damages. Tells me that the attorneys, in the way that they presented the case, created a compelling argument of strict liability. Okay, and this might even require some legislative changes, but I believe that the way that the industry works, the fact that, you know, Lauren, somebody can't just steal your buyer by, you know, seeing the contract with their name, calling your buyer up saying, if you pay 5,000 more and go through me, I can make the deal work, is something that's in the public's good and in our good, okay? Because we have a conduit to resolve those things without costly litigation. So I don't know if I'm going too much down a tangent here, but
Rob, do you think there's going to be a countersuit for reputation damage?
no.
Bob, I got a quick question.
Yes.
For Fran, if you have your own buyer, how much are you getting paid if you tell them you're doing you list at 3%?
Well, it just depends on how I feel the house is, if where the owner is pricing the house, and if I think I'm going to be struggling with the house for a while, or I mean, I never really, I do not have in my mind any fixed price for anything because it depends on the circumstances. Does the owner?
No, I'm talking about what are you're getting paid 3% to list the house. If you bring your own buyer there,
Dual agency.
Are you just getting paid 3% for, are you doing twice the work for half the money?
Oh, no, I always say that if I'm going to sell it myself, you know, if you decide that you're offering as the seller 3% to the buyer's agent, then, you know, if I sell it myself, I'll do it for 5%.
And Eric, I want to, Jay Latanzio, are you still on the call or did you drop off? Jay? Okay, maybe he dropped off. But, you know, in the Westfield office, there's a gentleman, Jay Latanzio, who...
Yeah, I'm here, Rob.
All right, so Jay, do you remember, like, you remember when I was signing your listings, a lot of yours were you would reduce it by 1% if you sell it yourself, close the deal?
Yes, I used to do that.
Right, and then I shared with you that you didn't need to do that to earn the business.
Well, right. That why would I discount myself? I have value and I add value.
Right. So maybe one person in time, Eric, had asked Jay to, if you sell it yourself, will you give me a discount? Maybe he said no. He said, well, you know, that's really important. You know, I can't make the decision today unless you do that, right? So maybe there's 1% of the public that's going to have that decision. But I think what happened, let me
what it came out of was I was at a ethics training one year, and some guy said every time he did that, he closed and got the listing. So that was why I started to implement that, because it was a tool he used to say, hey, because most people believe that if I sell it myself, they can save themselves money, right? And then, of course, I point out that only 3% of sales go dual agency. You know, obviously with this litigation, there's going to be a lot more of that.
I don't see anything wrong with that. I mean,
No,
if
no,
you-
hold on. Jay, we're kind of going down a different
right.
path here. I just wanted to say, I wanted to say that you had in your closing process that one of the things that you got as a benefit working with Jay Latanzia was if I sell it myself, I give you a discount. And I said, Jay, you know, I see you coordinating repairmen. I see you power washing houses and fences, and doing all these things that you're not typically going to do as a real estate professional because you care. And I said to you, why do you do that? And I think you stopped doing it. And I don't think you've lost any business from it. And I think that you've put money in your pocket that you earned for working on both sides. And I think, Eric, that goes directly to your question of if you have your own buyer, are you going to have a process of discounting it? I think if necessary, but I don't think it should be anticipated because you're doing both sides of the transaction.
Well, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Well, in the listing agreement, it's there is a, you know, and on the MLS variable commission, you can mark that so everybody knows if the commission is indeed variable. You need to disclose that.
Yeah, but I mean, we're going through like the semantics here. But Eric, I hope I'm answering the question right, because you know, if a customer says, "Hey, but if you sell it yourself, will you give me a discount?" It's an easy rollover to say yes. But it's also if you can say, "I'm going to be doing both sides of the work," you know, and if I do that, you know, the fee is the same. You know, and sometimes, Eric, I've seen people make the conversation more complicated by saying, so if I have a buyer, right, who I can go sell a property down the street to, and then I choose to sell your property because I've got it listed, that I'm not going to get paid on my client. I just want to understand what your expectation is. Like I've had people have that conversation, and I would go that deep if it's necessary. But Eric, how many buyers do you have in your database of, you know, in your KV Core, your network? How many people do you have? Hundreds, thousands?
Over 3,000.
So you have 3,000 people that you've earned the right to be in front of them, right? And if one of them happens to buy one of your listings instead of buying a property somewhere else, should you be penalized for that?
No, the question was not me. I'm just wondering if by saying for her, by Fran coming out and say, I charge 3% for the listing side and then 3% or 2.5% to the buyer's side. Because what I tell people is if they say, well, you cut your commission if you sell it yourself. And I said, thank you for asking, but no, actually you should be giving me a bonus because when I sell it myself, it will close and it will close in shorter amount of time for more money. So no, it's not negotiable if I sell it myself.
So again, like, you know, the word non-negotiable, I think is something that you want to avoid, but you want to look at, you know, if you want to get the full service, I can't deliver the full service. So my fee is 3% or whatever your fee is to work with the buyer. And I think if the public understands more, Eric, they would be more willing or less resistant to having that strategy. Okay. And then at the end of the day,
well,
Eric,
Rob,
hold on. I'll come back to you, Jay. But Eric, if you got a listing and the guy's like, look, I'm going to price it 500,000 below the market at the $4 million price range, and I'm going to do all the work to get it ready. And you know, I just want to know if you list it for 5%, would you do it for 4.5% if you sell it yourself? My guess would be that you would probably say yes and not even use the word negotiate, right?
Right.
If it was priced like that. So in essence, if you say it's non-negotiable, that's really not true. And that's what the association and the lawyers are looking for us to say is it's not negotiable. Everything's negotiable, but you know, you have to earn a living for your family. You know, if they understood that if you have 3,000 buyers and you want to say, so should I not send my listing to my 3,000 buyers because they're going to buy somewhere. So you want me to not get paid for the people I've paid to build a relationship with? And I don't think you need to go that deep, but it really has a lot of merit and it makes a lot of sense.
All right.
Everything is negotiable. If the seller doesn't ask about the
I mean,
discount, you're not going to talk about
And
it.
no, that's what I was going to say. The pivot, Rob, and what you've taught me to do is I have to demonstrate my value, and I have to convey my value proposition when either at a listing agreement or now with the buyer, right? And so my value is negotiable in every way, shape, or form, just like every other real estate transaction. In real estate, everything is negotiable, right? Everything is gray. And so how do I position my value proposition to say, hey, listen, just so you know, agent assisted, transactions get 16% more than FSBOs. And so, hey, if I'm going to get you 16% more, whatever the commission I take, whether it's 2, okay, because you want to limit the service, I'm just going to put it on the MLS, and you're going to handle all the showings and do these other things. 2, 3% if I do the prep work, 4 if I'm doing the general contracting stuff, and I've gone to the point now of actually making a tiered thing so that if I get them, and I just recently worked on this for somebody in Edison, and if I get you whatever 25,000 over the ask price, I get 2.5%. If I get 50,000 over the ask price, I get 3.5%. So I tiered the bonus structure so that they can choose what they want.
So Jay, I just want to you're in a marketplace where there's a lot of independents, right? Which have no franchise fees, no overhead, and there's a tremendous amount of discounting, and maybe the word discounting is they have lower price structures and they deliver less value, right? And you were falling victim to, you needed to go to the lower standard and deliver the higher value. And I think once you learn that you can communicate the value proposition in terms of even if you're getting a higher price, but you've done so many things for homeowners that are not traditional, like, coordinating contractors and even doing some manual labor yourself, that your value proposition does not warrant a 4% commission. And the fact that the marketplace is basically in the 4.5% doesn't mean that you're challenged to get business if you can have a conversation. And I think transparency, honesty, not everybody's experience is the same. If I list with you or one of the 4 competitors in the market, they're probably going to get 10% less for their house and only pay 2% more to work with you. And if they're educated, they can make that decision because you control the narrative. And I'm incredibly proud. Like, it was almost like a transformation on a Saturday having that conversation with you. And I'm not sharing that to say it was a great thing, pat myself on the back, but I'm saying that it can happen to anybody because a lot of it's in our mindset and in our communication.
Well, right. So the one I just signed yesterday, Rob, I'm getting 4% on my side, and giving out 2, but I was power washing yesterday. I will tell you that.
And you deserve that 4%. Absolutely.
But the whole thing Rob's talking about is the mindset shift that happened when I said, wait a minute, I do have value in a real estate transaction. And so I'm going to defend my value. And to the point, if you don't want to work with me, you're nuts. Okay. And I don't really want to work with you because I know that I add value because agent assisted brings 16% more. So are you crazy that if I bring you 6% more and I ask you to give me 6 and you don't want to give me that, then you're just shopping money.
I don't know who else is on. I don't know how many people are on this still, but all of the statistics that we're talking about, 16% higher with a FSBO you can get if you listed, all these statistics, these percentages that we're talking about, you guys can look it up on NAR. They have so much information if you log in. And you have so much content, and it can help you with the objection handling too. They have a lot on there for you.
I use the examples of my previous listings. Like the money making and selling a house is in the prep work. Okay, getting rid of old carpeting and refinishing hardwood floors that are under there. You make a ton. If it costs you 5, you get 20 back out from the buyer because it's done already. So it's who loses. Okay.
So Jay, I think what we're gonna do is we're gonna do we'll do a session on, how to communicate and discuss compensation on both listing and buying opportunities, okay? And then, Elizabeth, if you and Fazia and Colleen can, set something up with Seth, to talk about like different agency, components of that. We'll have a special breakout session for Florida. But as you can see, you're surrounded by, really talented, experienced, ethical people that if we just share ideas, we're gonna get there, 100 years faster than it would take us to do it on our own. And again, this forum, is for me to, basically moderate the talent that's on this call and to give you clarity to cut through the noise that the media and the plaintiff's attorneys want to have. And I'm going to leave with this last comment saying, like, I mean, if this thing keeps going, right, are they going to then go to all the for sale by owners that offered a agent, hey, we'll give you 3% if you bring us the buyer, or 2%? Like, is that now going to be illegal too? Because they paid the buyer's agent. They're going to say, oh, I didn't realize I was paying the buyer's agent. How ridiculous is that, right?
It is.
Hey,
Marilyn has one
Before you
point.
go, I just want to say one thing. For my Westfield's office, we're having a lunch and learn today, and actually, we will be going over this same subject. We're going to be on a live webinar at 12 o'clock with Daryl Davis, who's going to be giving us a lot of scripts on how we can handle this and different things.
Daryl Davis?
Yeah, so come into the office,
Wait a
12
minute,
o'clock.
is this the Daryl? Wait, Daryl Davis, he's the one.
The speaker
I
we
love
had.
Daryl
Yes.
Davis.
So come in, we have lunch.
Okay. He's got it all. He's
So
kind of ahead of the
I
curve
just
on it.
kind of changed it. I was doing a different lunch and learn, but with this subject, with all these questions, I thought that this would help you guys out a little.
So Marilyn, if anybody wants to, anybody on here wants to be on Zoom and they're not in your office, can they
set it up?
Get a link?
I could try to figure it out if I could.
I
But
used
I
a
had
lot of
registered
Daryl
for it.
Davis's
Putting us on the spot, but
but I
we
had
will
to
try to figure it
register
out.
for it. I don't know if they'll let me sign on 2 different ways. I
that's
don't
a
know.
big
Let me see
deal.
if I could have about an hour to figure it out.
We'll try to figure it out.
I'm sure
Rob,
it'll be recorded though. Yeah, I'm
What's
sure
that?
it'll be.
having Seth, for the Florida agents here, have a forum where we can actually ask questions and hear, from an attorney exactly where we need to step on this whole thing.
So Marilyn, I don't know if it's possible to have it recorded, or maybe just check to see if there will be a recording for that for those who aren't in your office, because it does sound like a registration thing. It might be a little bit hard to do. And
But I'm sure he'll have it recorded, and then once it's
Jay,
over.
Jay, I'm putting you in charge of making good, copious notes. Okay.
Hey, Rob.
When did I become your secretary? But okay, fine.
Go ahead,
I'll take
Mickey.
these notes.
I would also, I think we had a lot of great conversation today about sellers agents and how, how to handle that. My concern is for the buyer's agent, how are we going to be able to handle getting, that first time home buyer, or just any buyer that you meet the first time, and getting them to sign a buyer's agreement saying, hey, you're going to pay me. They don't know me. They don't know my ethics and values. And I could certainly, outline them all. But how are they going to really feel about signing, saying, I'll pay you 2% or 2.5% for your, for your service? How?
So what
I'm
Daryl
nervous
Davis
about that.
is suggesting, right, is we have to communicate the value proposition from being a customer, okay, where we have no fiduciary responsibilities, right, to being a client. When they sign with us as okay, is we want clients, we don't want customers. Now clients
I get
and
that,
customers
but getting
right
them
now,
to understand that, I think, especially that first time home buyer who's, only has maybe, I don't know, $20,000 or $30,000 to put down.
Hold on, one at a time. So Mickey, I guess my answer to that's going to be is that we need to articulate a process to demonstrate how the system works with clarity, and the conversation probably should go something like this. Hey, Mickey, you know, if we decide to work together, I want to explain to you how agency works and how compensation works. Right now, the majority of compensation is paid for by the seller offering a commission to provide the services I give to you. There may be instances where the seller is not providing a commission. In those circumstances, my commission is 2.5%. And if we come across a situation where we can't seem to work it out, you know, that would even, I would even be negotiable to trying to resolve that. And then we formulate this process, Mickey, so that we let them know that we're here to serve them first, and that we need to have a compensation mechanism that is transparent, right? And if there's 5 properties and 4 of them are offering, the seller is offering a commission and one the seller is not, and they're unwilling to pay, then you know what? Unfortunately, somebody has to pay us. And there's no sugarcoating that scenario. We just need to figure out a transparent way that has integrity to share that conversation. And Mickey, I think that we all can pull this off if we just have a roadmap, right? Because buyers don't expect us to work for free. They've become
Rob, the buyers think that Remax pays us and Berkshire Hathaway pays us. So what I've been doing, you know, for a few years now, was expressing to them, no, I pay for the gas. I pay for my car. I pay for my time. I have to pay Remax. Okay. So, because to dispel this myth that somehow the belief is that these corporate entities that we work for as 1099 employees are the ones paying, which is not true.
So I'm not sure which Sue put the comment in there. If you want to unmute yourself for a second, if you're comfortable.
Rob?
Yes.
Hold on, Colleen, just 1 second. Good, Sue. And I'll come back to you.
Yes. The comment I put in is in thinking about asking the buyer to pay our commission, I came across with agents. They are offering actually paying the buyer rewards, say, meaning that they were offering, say, for example, we got from the seller 6%. They are offering paying to the buyer 1 or 2%, or even half of their commission to the buyer. So that is, I don't know. I mean, some agents are offering that.
So Sue, here's my commentary on that, and I'm glad that you shared that, because I don't think we should be intimidated by that, because you can buy a Hyundai or you can buy a Mercedes, right? And if you want to have world-class service for one of the most important purchases in your lifetime, I think you want to have a professional that is committed to their fiduciary duty to you and is not just taking the business by giving you a refund or a rebate. Now it's up to, and Sue, there may be some that you don't work with, but I think one of the positives that comes out of this is if we do have buyer agency agreements, okay, we know who's on our team and who isn't. Because I think we've all been in a situation where we've been working with somebody. Well, let me ask this. Has anybody worked with somebody for more than a month and then had them call you up, or you called them and they said, you know, we went to an open house and we bought a house without you? Has anyone on this call had that and wants to share that painful experience?
I've had one.
Okay, Mickey, you've had one.
Yeah.
If you've had a buyer's agency agreement, they wouldn't do that.
I totally get that. It's just getting them to sign it is.
No, but Mickey, when you say just getting them to sign it it's a self-defeating prophecy. And you know I love you and I respect you, but I'm turning it around and saying this is a great opportunity for me to share. You know, Mickey, there was actually a class action lawsuit claiming that we need to be more transparent, and I just want to make a conversation to see if you feel we're the right people to work together. And now the best practice in the industry is that we define our relationship. By defining that relationship, I want to tell you about how I get paid. And if you think I'm a right fit, we're going to sign it up today.
I don't think we should discuss the lawsuit. I think once it's,
okay. So
I think we should just say by law, by state law, just
Well, but it's
Click
not,
on
but right
state.
now it's not state law.
Right.
So,
So right now you don't have to do it.
So if you don't, and I agree, maybe we don't mention litigation, but maybe we say, you know, sometimes there's confusion in the industry about how we get paid. And if we decide to work together, what I'd like to do is have our relationship put into writing, because don't you think that whatever we agree upon should be documented in writing, right? And then if they say, well, we don't want to commit to working with you, can you share with me why? Right?
Confusion about how we get paid.
And
Those are key words.
I would even use the example of, hey, you know, if I list your house and I spend time marketing it and advertising it, you know, we have a contract. So if we decide that we want to work together, if there's some reason you don't feel I'm the right person, then maybe we can discuss it and maybe we can part ways. But there's still abundant buyers out there, Mickey.
Hey, Rob. So there's a local company, Realty Mart, and I learned about this years ago. So what they do to get people to sign buyer agency agreements is they offer them this rebate, right? So that's why you get the phone calls at open houses. Do you guys offer a rebate? And so the way that they've structured their rebate is, okay, if you find the house on your own, you get a $2,500 rebate. If you need to use an agent 1 or 2 times, you get a $1,500 rebate. If you need to use me 3 or 4 times, well, you only get $500. Okay,
But that's also, that's discounting your value again. It's not negotiable.
No. Again, incentivizing them. Hey, I'll give you $500 if you sign the.
Yeah, but Netta, Jay is not suggesting that. He's just sharing how some of those other models work. And honestly, this is not just candy coating it. I think this is a good thing because it now forces us to progress the conversation further.
I like it.
And to identify who we're going to work with. And I think, you know, the magnitude of people that joined this call kind of is a testament to the uncertainty that's in the marketplace and people wanting to get some knowledge. And I think we've accomplished that, giving you some knowledge and tools and looking at it and saying, how do we benefit from, you know, this market shakeup, right? Because there's turmoil in the market now, and it's those who are bold and transparent and communicators that win. Colleen, you had something. I apologize. I feel like it was 10 minutes.
That's okay. I was going to say that actually having them sign a buyer's agreement can give them a competitive edge when they're trying to get a property. Because if they're paying our compensation, the seller isn't, which gives the seller more money supposedly in their pocket. In a competitive market that we're in, we're still in a very competitive market, a shortage of inventory. It gives them an advantage. So I think it's all how we portray it to the consumer.
I'm gonna leave this, and we're now 35 minutes over. I'm gonna say that the cream rises to the top, and you know, you don't run scared when the public needs us the most. They need us to communicate. They need us to continue to deliver transparent, honest value. And if we continue to do that, we'll have abundant careers. Do you need to disclose the seller? Yeah, I would always disclose the seller side. You have a buyer's agent agreement. So anyway.
So Rob, one of the things that Daryl Davis pointed out is that through all of these things over the years, all the shrinkages, right, all the challenges, agents have actually come out stronger, right? Remember when Zillow came on, right? And oh, Zillow's going to wreck our business and they're giving away all this information. Well, we came out stronger. Then you know, the Great Recession, we came out stronger. Okay. And that's all this is another opportunity by staying on the cutting edge, like calls like this, to make us better at what we do. I mean, we're going to be driving around less around if we have buyer agency agreements, burning up our cars, wasting gas on fuel, people aren't committed to us, correct? So we're going to get more and more time on our hands because we're going to have committed people working with us now, right?
Exactly.
And Jay, I think we've always, you know, this group here has always been, you know, committed fiduciaries to their clients, but I think now is an enhanced reason to have that conversation more explicitly and to document it in writing, which is a positive and a good thing. It's good for the public. And to be honest with you, if somebody doesn't want to sign a buyer agency agreement after you have a conversation with them,
Bye, Felicia.
You should be concerned about that.
That's right.
If somebody's unwilling to sign it, right? Why would they be unwilling to sign it? Because they're probably not going to be loyal.
They're going to cheat on you.
Right.
Well, you haven't conveyed the
Exactly.
value proposition properly, so you got to get better at doing that.
Mhm.
So anyway, again, I can't tell you how excited I am about the turnout,
This was a great meeting.
the brilliant questions that were asked, and I hope that you're inspired to live abundantly and serve your clients. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Yes.
you, buddy.